Good evening and welcome to the Transportation and Parking Commission meeting of Monday, August 25. Item number 1, please.
Item 1, regular business agenda. Item 1A, roll call. Commissioner Meravian. Commissioner Sulayan.
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Weissman.
Here.
Commissioner Welch.
Here.
Chairperson Sahakian.
Here.
Next item, please.
Item 1B, flag salute. Chairperson Sahakian.
Thank you. Please stand. I'm going to ask Commissioner Sulayan to make the honor.
Hands on your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, States of America, and to the flag, thanks, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2, posting of agenda. The agenda for the Monday, August 25th, 2008 regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Friday, August 22nd, 2008 before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Item number 3.
Item 3, approval of minutes. Item 3A, July 28th, 2008 regular meeting approval of minutes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments?
No.
No comments. Approved as written.
I would abstain on that.
Well,
Item 4, oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision.
thank you. I don't have any cards for oral communication. I do have some cards for the action items, so I'm going to open and close oral communications, and let's move on to the next item.
Item 5, action items. Item 5A, Director of Public Works regarding report regarding installation of speed humps on Alameda Avenue between Glenwood Road and Kenneth Road. 5A1, motion to recommend that the City Council deny the installation of 3 speed humps on Alameda Avenue between Glenwood Road and Kenneth Road.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'd like to have Tommy Chow, Traffic Engineering Associate, who prepared the staff report, to make a brief presentation. And Mr. Mitchell and myself are also available to help any questions that may come up. Thank you.
This report is for the request for speed humps on Alameda Avenue between Glenwood Road and Kenneth Road. In January 2006, staff received a request from a resident on Alameda Avenue for the city to install speed humps on his street. The requester stated excessive travel speeds and a high volume of non-local traffic on Alameda Avenue. As prescribed in the city's adopted neighborhood traffic calming program, staff conducted the following studies: 24-hour traffic volume counts, speed surveys, and field surveys. As shown on this slide, the travel lanes, residence district, street classification, posted speed limit, 85th percentile speed, daily volume, primary emergency response route, street width, and support via petition were met. However, the truck and transit route requirement was not met since Metro Route 183 runs on this segment of Alameda Avenue. As shown on the previous slide, Alameda Avenue satisfies all the criteria for installation of speed humps as stated in the neighborhood traffic calming program, except for its use as a public transit route. Staff requests that the TPC recommend that the City Council deny the installation of speed humps on Alameda Avenue between Glenwood Road and Kenneth Road. This recommendation is based on the criterion: the street shall not be a public transit route as prescribed in the city's adopted neighborhood traffic calming program, November 2004. Staff also notified residents on the segment Alameda Avenue of the TPC meeting and invited them to attend to provide input if they wish. Staff has not received any calls from residents on Alameda Avenue. That concludes my presentation for speed humps on Alameda Avenue between Glenwood Road and Kenneth Road. Staff would be happy to answer any questions that TPC may have.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Solano?
Mr. Chow, can you tell us what the route is on the Route 183 when it comes above Glen Oaks? What is the route above Glen Oaks on Alameda?
What's
That particular section.
this is a map of the Metro Route 183. It comes from San Fernando Road, then it turns on Alameda,
Okay.
then it turns on Kenneth Road, then goes up into the city of Burbank, and continues back downward that way.
And down to what street? What's the street on Burbank side when it goes down?
Olive.
Olive?
Olive.
Okay. The block from Glen Oaks to Kenneth, what's the passenger load in and out, approximately? Do we have that count?
We don't have that data.
Oh,
It's just a
data.
metro route.
Okay. Do we have the speed survey on Alameda, the 1200 block of Alameda?
Yes, we do.
What it is? What's the high and low, and how many? What's the
The volume is about 6,000.
The volume is about 6,000.
1,000.
And what's the highest speed that was counted? And what is...
Well, the 85th percentile is
Right.
34, but some speeds are higher and some are lower.
Like, what's the highest speed that you clocked in?
If I may, Chairman Slan, Mr. Slan, the data that is collected is done by an outside agency, and they summarize it in 2-mile increments. The way we receive it is it only goes as high as 42 miles per hour or greater, so we don't know what. There were some speeds recorded that were above 42 miles per hour through that length, but again, the 85th percentile is recorded at 34 miles per hour compared to a posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. Typically, for those that give above 40 miles per hour, it's not that uncommon for 1 to 2% of the daily volume to exceed even the 42 mile per hour based on other surveys that we've seen for other streets around town. So with the 6,000 cars a day on that, 1 or 2% of those conceivably could be exceeding the 42 miles per hour that's reported.
Okay. And I'm asking all this question because I want to conclude properly how I'm going to go by. Would you say Alameda would be something similar that we had a couple of years ago for the folks on Allen Street? I know the folks on Alameda has an issue with speeding, and the folks on Allen, I believe it was an issue about the Metro, the B line. Is this something very similar to that?
Well, the issue about Allen Street was we implemented the Beeline Route 7 on Allen, and it was operational for a number of years. And the residents on Allen, they didn't want to have the Beeline operate on Allen. So they petitioned, we brought it back to the Transportation Parking Commission, and the recommendation was to remove the Beeline from Allen. So we rerouted the Beeline. That was within the purview of City of Glendale because we operate the Beeline.
Okay.
And that basically removed the only, we have, in Northwest Glendale, we have two, at the time, we only had two services. One was the MTA, Route 183, and then Beeline Route 7. When we removed Beeline Route 7 from Allen Street totally, after we restructured our services, and it operated on Glenwood, and it goes down to Glen Oaks right now. No longer is in that neighborhood. The only transit that's there now is the 183. So in that neighborhood, that's the only thing that's available. Yes, it's similar in terms of a residential street. You're operating transit services on a residential street where we had Allen, if you compare it to Alameda. the volumes definitely are much higher on Alameda compared to Allen. But 183 has been there for a long, long time, and it's operated by the Los Angeles Metro. So we don't have necessarily control over rerouting, realigning their lines. We can always give them recommendations as to do that. But mostly they operate within the local cities to provide service to the residents of that community. So if you ask them to remove it, they can. It's just that then you're denying service to folks that are there and they can use it.
I believe also they were on Kennett, right?
There's a portion of
You were on
Canada that
Kennett
Tommy
too.
showed.
No, not
Yeah,
this
or
particular.
the Route 7, Route 7 we were on Glenwood.
Right, and
and
then there was an issue
yeah.
that we route either Kennett or Glenwood next to Hoover High School. We route also the bus. I don't know which
Right.
bus line. Was it the B line or
It was a B-line.
how about the one on Kennett?
Kennett, B-line on Kennett came and then went to Allen and went down south, or then came back up from Glen Oaks to Allen and to Kennett and then went to Hoover High School.
Okay. Now, we don't have a say on the 183, but we can ask them, you said, right?
That's been looked at by MTA in the past as far as their restructuring when they're trying to reduce their level of service because they have a budget issue, and they have looked at it. But 183, certain portions of 183 line is very high ridership, and there are certain portions of 183 is not as high ridership. Earlier, when you asked about the boardings in that stretch, we have the information, we can get it from Metro. I don't have it for this purpose of this meeting. But most of these transit lines have high and low ridership depending what segment of the communities that they go through, that they serve.
Because I was there on Saturday, and I couldn't see anything crowded on that bus.
Okay, my schedule shows that they run Monday through Friday. They don't run on Saturday.
There was either a B line or I couldn't tell if it was there was a bus there.
Yeah. Monday through Friday, they run on almost an hourly basis from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The 183.
The 183.
Right.
No other buses goes on Allen Street?
No, because we don't have any more B-line service there. One of the, if you recall, when we were discussing with the commission was to put the B-line on Alameda, and that time we also had resistance from the residents not to shift the problem from Allen to Alameda. So we totally took out the B-line from that area, serving that area. So currently the 183 operates Monday to Friday according to the schedule from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on an hourly frequency.
And we don't know how long the line was there, that particular route.
The line has been there. It's one of the oldest lines that
Fine.
serves Glendale, so more than probably 10 years.
I'm just curious if the resident on the block of the 1200 want that particular line to be there. I mean, curious to know.
From input we received from the past, so this is not from necessarily regarding this issue. Obviously, residents don't want large buses on residential street.
Right.
They just don't like it. And if they don't use it, obviously, then that's all the reasons they don't want the buses. But given the alignment of 183 that comes through Burbank to Glendale, there needs to be one street that they have to traverse, and that's Alameda has been there for a number of years.
Let me ask you this. Does the Burbank has something similar to the B line
Burbank
that goes on that route?
doesn't go on, they operate within city limits of Burbank. They do not operate
They
on
don't go on
Alameda.
Alameda?
No, there's an area where Burbank buses basically cross the 183, but it's not, it's in Burbank. It's several blocks west of Glendale border.
Okay, I'll be curious what the public thinks, so I might have further questions later on. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. So is it fair to say that but for the bus route, you would be recommending that we allow the installation of the speed humps?
Yes, well, we have, we've been fairly consistent in our recommendations when we look at the criteria for installation of speed humps or speed lumps, and we try to follow the guidelines that have been approved. Again, these are only guidelines. They're not that they can't be they can't be changed, or under different circumstances, the commission or the city council has decided that if the criterion is not met, still we went ahead and put in the speed hump. So essentially, staff, we tried to bring to the commission the recommendation that meets all the criteria that's in the guidelines.
And if there were another possible route for 183, do you think that there's a street that would be better to relocate that route to?
My experience with the Glendale streets, as I said, with the Route 7, what we tried to do was shift 183 out of Glendale and shift Route 7 from Allen to Alameda, and we had resistance at the time from Alameda residents saying, if you're going to shift it out of Alameda, don't bring in another bus, whether it's Beeline or any other bus to that. So if we do anything there, it's going to be outside Glendale city limits, has to go into Burbank, which then, depending on who the riders are, it will impact the ridership. The people who, possibly they can walk a block to a bus stop if it's farther, but if it's more 2 blocks or 3 blocks, depending if they're disabled, it creates some hardship. But other than that, the street is highly qualified for a speed hump, given the volume of traffic and the speeds that we've recorded.
I mean, the only option would be to keep the bus line on San Fernando. Otherwise, all those north-south streets, they look the same. They're all residential, one in one direction.
They're all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Well, the block from Glen Oaks to Glenwood is a mixture of apartments,
Yes.
mostly apartments and some single-family homes.
Single-family.
But the blocks from Glenwood to Kennedy, they're all single-family homes. It's a beautiful street. And I was thinking, it all depends how we go by this. It doesn't have to be on San Fernando. They can come on Glen Oaks, like we did, according to the map I see here. It's just
Cut
one
it
block.
short, go on Glen Oaks, and then come back
that's
down
right.
on.
It's only 1 block from Glenwood to Glen Oaks.
Right.
Now, I don't know what's the ridership from Glenwood to Kennett.
Well, but the route goes all the way up to Bel Air Drive, though. That's
But it goes on Kennett
City of
first, and
Burbank.
then it
Right.
goes, it goes down. But this is, later on I can
I mean,
propose
it's
a
not as
solution.
simple as that, because it goes into the city of Burbank, there's a ridership that needs to be consulted, you probably
Right.
need a public hearing, so I think although it's distinct into this formula, whereas if there was no MTA bus lines, then, we probably all go for it and approve the speed humps. But I hate to say it shouldn't become a rerouting the line issue for us here.
Just as a note,
Otherwise, we're postponing the item, and then
right.
then we're discussing it at a later
On
time.
the Burbank side, they're mostly apartments, Mr. Chair. Mostly apartments, up to Kennett.
But again,
As your
if you cut the line at Glen Oaks, you're in fact impacting city of Burbank also.
No, I'm not cutting
Particularly
on Glen
on
Oaks. Well, we'll see where we go. I'm not cutting, that's what's...
The only option, again, as I said, this is something, if a recommendation is we go back to MTA and discuss it with them, you have to do public meetings with the community and let them know about the potential of realignment. Could be that they just go straight down Providence
Right, I saw that.
and totally avoid that part of Glendale. But I don't have the ridership information and what would be the impacts, and so that would be something we would have to do if we want to realign the line.
Is there any way possible that we can get that later on, the ridership from Glen Oaks to Kennett?
Yeah, we can ask MTA for the ridership. We may have it in the office, actually. I don't have it here. I wasn't expecting the question, so I'm sure it would have been a nice data to have. But it would be something we can check with MTA as far as what the ridership is. Again, usually our experience with the B line, the first block north of Glen Oaks, usually it's all multifamily. So as a result, you have more potential for transit ridership. As you get into the single family, second, third block, north of Glen Oaks, then it's all single family. Usually the ridership is low from that standpoint.
And bear in mind, the street, I believe, is 36 feet wide, right? That's what the data says. And if you have both sides of the street, cars were parked, they're about 5 feet each, so that's 10 feet minus. the bus is about 10 feet to 12 feet.
It's 8-foot parking.
8-foot,
so it's 16
8-foot parking lanes.
16 feet. So you're looking 16 minus 36, you're looking 20 foot.
About 20 feet where a bus has to go south or north.
What we can do, if the commission would like, I do have a speaker on this item, and I would like to hear him, definitely, but we can postpone this item to the next meeting and then get all the facts and data, and then, so we have a better idea. And at the same time, maybe we can, staff can contact City of Burbank to see if there's there has been any issues at their end in this area as far as the MTA bus line, any complaints from residents, and see what could be done.
I was just going to say that it's kind of one of these situations where no matter what we do, we're going to inconvenience somebody. And so I think it does maybe behoove us to be able to get a little more data and find out, hopefully, to inconvenience the least number of people in the least impactful way.
True. I mean, my first inclination, it's very high volume, in speed humps and high volume of traffic. I don't like to mix them. I don't know if the request was for traffic calming, or was it for speeding specifically. If it's part of traffic calming, not that the city hasn't implemented speed humps to discourage bypassers, people using Alameda, being right at the boundary. Alameda is the boundary, just west of it. Now, is west side of it City of Burbank, or the whole thing is within Glendale jurisdiction?
The city line is...
City line is right at Alameda. So west side of it is Burbank.
If west side of it is Burbank, then don't they have a say in this?
No, I'm saying the street is in Glendale. The Alameda is totally in Glendale right away.
Public right-of-way up to west side curb face, basically, City of Glendale.
No, I think that even the homes,
The line
pretty sure.
runs like right down here,
Right down the line.
down behind the apartment buildings.
Correct me, Tommy, if I'm wrong. And I'm sure you'll hear it from the residents. The speeding is the major issue.
Okay.
Obviously, it carries a lot of volume, but when you have that level of volume with that speed, the frequency of the speeders is high compared to streets that carry only about 1,000 cars a day. And you don't have as much exposure to that speeding, whereas the street has more volume and high speed. So the main reason for the complaint for traffic calming was the speeding issue.
And I believe they've been complaining for a long time. I do
That
remember
speeding has
letters
been
for
an
years.
issue on Alameda for a long time. That's
Long
correct.
time.
Well, the application was filed in 2006,
Yes.
correct? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and invite the speaker at this time, Mr. Jack Messett.
Good evening. I would, first of all, just like to thank you for having this hearing. It's been a long time coming, and I promise to be brief.
Can you state your name, please?
My name is Jack Messett. I'm a resident of the 1200 block of Alameda. To start, I would just like to give you a first-hand look at the problem that we have on Alameda. That would be the... What happened? Thank you. This is Alameda Avenue, a residential street with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. On Alameda Avenue, this is what we deal with every day. City surveys confirm 898 cars are driving 9 or more miles an hour over the speed limit on Alameda Avenue every day. Due to the speeders, it is very difficult to safely pull out of a driveway. Some speeders actually pass those going the speed limit. Unfortunately, the MTA buses are no better than any of the cars. Even police cars ignore the speed limit on Alameda Avenue. Something needs to be done. More than the shocking video, the survey that I hold in my hand says even more. This is the latest speed volume study that was commissioned by this very department. The study confirms that 75% of the cars that drive down our street are speeding. It confirms that 898 cars are driving 9 or more miles an hour over the speed limit every day. It confirms that 1 car every hour is driving 55 or more miles an hour over the speed limit. That's 30 miles an hour over the speed limit, 55 miles an hour. This study says the concerns of the residents of Alameda are well-founded. We're here tonight because 100% of the current residents have signed a petition for speed bumps. Do we want them? No. We need them. Unfortunately, your staff is not recommending the installation of speed bumps. In their past reports, they've gone as far as saying that Alameda Avenue is operating at an acceptable level of safety. With the numbers I've just stated, and with the evidence in this video, I do not know how they can possibly come to this conclusion. As a citizen, I have no more recourse than to let you, the city, know that there's a problem. In the past 2 years, I've bought my own radar gun, conducted my own speed surveys, I've built a website and posted my results to build awareness. I've written editorials in the local paper and installed my own speed limit signs. Though I've tried my best, I cannot personally fix this problem. This commission does have that power, and Alameda needs speed bumps. I've read the traffic calming guidelines, and as you've seen, we fit every criteria. Even the fire department that in the past has used Alameda as an established emergency route sees the problem, and they are not fighting the speed bumps. Therefore, I'd like to address the one reason your staff recommends to deny our petition, and that's the MTA. Yes, Alameda Avenue is currently a bus route, and the MTA does not want speed bumps. In their response to our petition, they've cited concerns of passenger safety, wear and tear on vehicles, and increased traffic times. According to the state of California traffic codes, using the roads is a privilege. It's not a right. If I, as a citizen, abuse that privilege, I lose the privilege. I think that we can all agree that a 28,000-pound vehicle that drives even 1 mile an hour over the speed limit is driving recklessly. But as you'll see, 1 mile an hour over is nothing on Alameda Avenue. An empty MTA bus weighs roughly 14 tons. An empty MTA bus has 350% more collision energy than a car. As bus speed doubles, its collision energy increases exponentially. The minimum stopping distance of a bus increases 50% from 25 to 30 miles an hour. At just 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, there is a 32% increase in collision force than a bus traveling 25 miles an hour. and there is also a 20% increase in minimum stopping distance. The minimum stopping distance of a bus doubles from 25 to 35 miles an hour. A vehicle weighing 28,000 pounds going 11 miles an hour over the speed limit. That's a 176% increase in collision force and a 110% increase in minimum stopping distance. The statistics in this video were provided by the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute, the Center for National Truck and Bus Statistics, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The sad reality is that the MTA needs these speed bumps just as much as the cars. And while I can show you further video with countless more speeding buses, I think that the carelessness demonstrated in this video is a clear indication that the MTA is abusing their privilege of using Alameda Avenue. This commission has a duty to show the MTA that the reckless use of our streets with a 14-ton vehicle is not tolerated in the city of Glendale. If you deny our petition for speed bumps tonight, you are sending a message to the community that you are willing to wait for someone to die before you seriously address this problem. Taking the obvious moral responsibility out of the equation, what is going to be more costly for the city of Glendale? A lawsuit after someone is killed or seriously injured due to a lack of response to this problem, or actually solving the problem before the accident occurs? Again, I as a citizen have brought up a problem, your studies confirm the problem, and this commission has the power to fix the problem. I implore you to install speed bumps on the 1200 block of Alameda Avenue before somebody dies, not after. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one correction and information for you. This commission is advisory to council. We do not have the power to install the speed humps. We make recommendation to council, it's advisory, and they will make the determination, basically. I just want you to know that. Thank you for the video. I'm sure this situation exists probably in 80% of the streets throughout Glendale. It's not common to Alameda. Any comments from my colleagues?
I have,
Do we still want to get information from MTA and then proceed, or you want to make a decision tonight?
Mr. Chairman, are there other speakers or no other?
This is the only on
Oh, okay.
5A.
Oh, okay.
I
thought-
have 4 of them on 5B. Now, I did see some people that came in, newcomers. If you want to speak, I'll take your cards. But I think they walked out. There had 3 people walk in and walk out, so. Questions?
I have a
You want to
que-
come back to the podium for a
Yeah,
second?
please. Would you still would like to have, with the speed humps, would you still would like to have the bus on that route?
Listen,
It doesn't
I'm
matter?
not a bus user, and I don't know how many people use the bus on our street, but I can tell you, they need the buses, or they need the speed bumps, these buses do. So, I mean, let it be up to the MTA whether they want to continue using our street. But this evidence is clear that they're abusing our street, and just as much as the cars are.
Right. Since you live there, just in your personal opinion, do you see the buses, the ridership of that particular block, or?
Never seems all that full.
Right.
But I don't know really what the rest of the residents feel, but when I went around to gather signatures, no one, I said that was probably one of the implications if we put in speed bumps, that we would lose the buses, and hopefully it would, solve the speeding problem, and no one had a problem signing the petition. I mean, I have 100% of the residents, outside of one vacant house.
Have you submitted that, if we do have a copy of it that you can provide to the commission?
We do have copies of the petition.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing that you need to consider is, with speed humps comes noise. They do generate noise. And if the buses are to stay on Alameda, just heads up.
It can't be worse than the speeding. I mean, noise isn't going to kill somebody.
I understand, but it will become an issue. Just for you to know, and if your neighbors are watching tonight, for them also to know. Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. So, any suggestions? How do you guys want to proceed on this item?
I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission before I say anything.
I mean, it's very hard to ignore when virtually 100% of people on a street are asking for something. I think the issue for us is we kind of need to do a balancing act. Like I said before, we have the folks on Alameda on one sense, and any possible impact on the MTA ridership on the other. I've been down to the location several times. I was there this morning. I did see a car almost get creamed trying to back out of the driveway. I am concerned that there is, an ongoing safety problem there. And my inclination at this point is I would really like to give these folks their speed bumps. I'm not sure I'm ready, 100% without knowing maybe a little bit more about the MTA issues to go that way, but that's how I'm inclined right now. All due respect for the staff, I understand, why they're recommending what they are recommending, and as the chairman pointed out, we're just advisory to the city council. They're going to make the decision, but that's kind of the direction I'm leaning in right now.
I would agree. I mean, I think that it's, within the city's power to control its own streets. If the, MTA has an issue with that, that's, a separate matter. We don't have power over that. So, I'm inclined to agree, although, as Commissioner Weissman said, I would prefer to see a little bit more data, perhaps get a letter from MTA that expresses their opinion directly, and in their own language. before we make a decision on that. But, again, it basically is we could, it may not be the most politic thing to do, but we could just put the speed lumps in there and let Metro do what Metro is going to do. But,
Is this a speed bump or speed lumps?
They're bumps.
The bumps, right.
It's not a designated emergency
Right.
response route, so
Right.
the fire department has no issue with it.
Have the Glendale PD ever, how often do they enforce a speed limit on that particular city? I know they cannot be there 24 hours a day. This is a quality of life issue. I'm just curious, what data do they have? And
I don't have that data as far as the frequency of enforcement. It's on a case-by-case basis. If the residents complain a lot, then they try, based on their availability, to enforce the speed limit.
regarding my view, I think having more data will help us, but I'm more inclined to have a solution today, kind of maybe have a brainstorm idea if there's any possibility, even though we don't have a say on an MTA, to reroute the bus in any way possible, see what kind of solution we might have, and propose that to the MTA, because this is an issue, not only cars driving on the speed, I mean, as evidence shows, even the MTA is speeding. So trying to find a solution as much as we can today, and if we don't come to a conclusion, then if we need more data, and if that will nail us to the conclusion, then maybe we should go that route. But as of right now, if we can have some kind of discussion and find out what can we do for the folks who live on Alameda Street.
I have a proposal. All right, we can amend the motion and vote on it, because I'm inclined to approve the installation of the speed humps and attach a condition to it, and I like your idea, with consent from MTA.
Well, the MTA is saying no.
Well, we don't know yet. We don't know yet.
MTA
They don't like to see it, but there has been situations, not only in this city, in other cities, where MTA do have bus routes where speed humps exist.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments that I have. One is some of the commissioners, you asked for more data. The data that we could provide to you might be just the ridership on the bus. And I will tell you that it's not going to be like a full bus. In other words, if that would make a difference in your opinion that this is a very busy section, it's like a downtown setting where you have a lot of ridership on the buses, so then you have to weigh in between, the impact of those riders. The ridership, as I said, different segments on 183 line have different levels of ridership. The boardings and lightings are different. So in that segment, probably closest to Glen Oaks, there's a potential for more pickups and drop-offs in that area. The rest of that segment, because it goes through single-family residential, there's I'm sure people ride it, but it's not that you're going to have a full-load bus going through that neighborhood. So I can get you some of the ridership information, but I don't think it's going to be very high to make a difference as far as the Commission's decision. In my experience, MTA usually don't fight the cities. I mean, although they have a right as far as MTA they can operate on any street in the county. They can put bus stops where they think is appropriate. Of course, they work with the local agencies to, keep their criteria of the frequency of the bus stops, where the locations are going to be, and try to essentially mitigate if there's any impacts. In this case, I'll be happy to, we've had discussions with the MTA about that, and their position is not going to be saying, no, don't put it in because we're running over it. I'm not sure we will get any negative or positive response to our question, but if the Commission wants to approve speed humps, we can certainly, before it goes to City Council, let the MTA know. If we get an objection from the MTA specifically in writing, then I would suggest I bring it back to the Commission for you to consider it.
Yeah, and
rather than to go to Council and then have it sent back to the Commission. So that would be another option you may have. As I said, staff, we try to hold to the criteria that was approved by the commission and the city council. So we're making our recommendation. It's a guideline. You need to weigh in the public input and the concerns of the community and then make a recommendation. So it might be that if whatever vote you take tonight or recommendation for us to go to council, before we go to council, we'll run it by MTA, we'll send it in writing, or we'll meet with them and say, here's what the commission action is. And if we get any resistance, or specifically they're very concerned about it, or they have a different idea, we'll bring it back to the commission. Otherwise, we'll take your recommendation to city council. We'll let the council know what our staff recommendation is, what the commission recommendation is.
That was my proposition, except I wanted something in writing from MTA. I'm willing to waive that if the commissioners agree.
I like the suggestion.
If verbally,
we'll ask them. We'll ask them. If they're give it to us in writing or verbally, whatever. But I'm saying before we'll go to them, let them know before we take it to city council if there's an objection, or if there's a major concern, or there's any other alternative that MTA may suggest to us that it'll be new. We'll be happy to bring it back to the commission and not take it to council. That way you have a second chance to kind of weigh in on that recommendation. But if they say they have no objection, they're okay with it, they're run, then we'll directly take it to city council without any further recommendation from commission.
I have a technical question, if I may. I know the speed limit is 25. Is the concern regarding the MTA, is it the time issue to arrive to the stop sign, or the wear and tear only? Because I know once we install the speed humps, we will recommend the recommendations to do 15 miles per hour on those speed humps. That will still be a wear and tear on the buses at 15 miles per hour?
In general, the new buses that are running, they've become a lot more sophisticated than the old buses we used to run. You have electronic fare boxes, you have digital signs on the buses, right now we have cameras on our buses. So anything that, if you are going over the hump or a bump and it impacts it, it starts shaking those equipment, it impacts those equipment. In other words, and also it's a wear and tear on the buses when you have a large bus going over these humps on a daily basis.
Even at 15 miles per hour, 10 miles per hour?
It's the same thing concern our fire department has. They have, on their fire trucks, they have a lot of equipment, electronic equipment, that can get impacted as a result of all the bumping. The on-time performance, yes, there is 3 speed humps potentially may not really have a major impact on their on-time performance, but they still have to slow down. I will definitely let them know that, their buses are going over the 25-mile speed limit, so that's not acceptable. That's something they would have to let their driver know. But that's really their major concern is wear and tear on the vehicle, impact to their equipment. And earlier, as I stated, if you want to realign that route from Alameda, we don't know where else to put it. City of Burbank may not want to have it in their street. So then MTA gets caught in between two cities, where should that bus go, short of eliminating, which then impacts the ridership. So the MTA can weigh in whether they want to run it. There's a slower and there's an impact to their buses, but they can still maintain some level of transit in that neighborhood in the northwest Glendale area. That's kind of the balancing act.
Is there a protocol for having 3 speed bumps instead of just 2, for example, on the street?
Tom, you want to answer that?
When you have 400 to 500 feet in between, then they become far less effective. Also with that, studies have shown that if you have fewer than 3, there tends to be less effectiveness the same way. People are inclined to tolerate just going over 1 or 2 and say, I can take that, and then they go on from there. It doesn't mean you have to have 6 or 7, but 3 seems to be a comfortable number, and it just so turns out that the block is a long block and that we can accommodate 3. So that if this were to proceed, this would be our recommendation. To go to fewer than that would be an understandable compromise, but it would be less effective on trying to reduce the 85th percentile down to approximately 25 miles per hour.
And I drove it early this afternoon. You definitely need the set at 3.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Last question. Just in case if it comes back to us and if we bring more data, can we have the ridership from Alameda all the way to that loop on Kennett and then down south, I think it's Olive, like you said?
Yeah.
Just that loop, if we can have that data.
Yeah, we'll
Not
get a
only
ridership
just-
for the line from Burbank into Glendale, so you'll see what the ridership is.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll ask what's available. May not be, they don't collect data all the
We can.
time, but what's available, we'll try to get it. Again, if MTA has an objection or a concern, then that's when we'll come back with that data. If they said, fine, we can live with it, then we'll go forward. If not, then we'll bring it back to the commission.
And that's the only line serving that neighborhood, correct?
That's correct. We had Route 7 that
Correct,
complemented 183.
Not
That way,
anymore.
we had MTA service and local service, so they were within a block of each other. So you could transfer from B-line to MTA. But our decision was not to run the B-line in that neighborhood anymore, so that's one of the concerns. Just strictly from a transit standpoint, I'm putting my transit hat on. If you remove that bus, basically there is no transit service in that area.
And with these gas prices, I mean, I'm even tempted to say if it's an old study, it's not going to mean much. I think we need to look at the ridership now, because throughout the city, there's an increase.
Oh, I agree.
And I hate to impact it, but, so for now, let's go ahead and move forward and amend the motion with Ms. Sanson's blessing. So the commission would like to vote on this item with the understanding that staff will contact MTA and get a verbal consent. If there's no strong opposition to it, then staff will take the item, the recommendation to council.
And again, I'd like to make a note. It's only in case, I just want to emphasize that strongly. I mean, according to the map, you see it's on San Fernando and on Alameda. If there's any possibility, if it comes back, if we can think about this, it's very easy to put this on Glen Oaks and then hit Olive and go down. And I don't know, that's the reason I want the ridership on that loop, which is important for me, the current ridership. And I want the input from the residents, if we can send a letter, if the ridership is, I mean, if they want those buses on their street. I mean, this is something that
I
I'm
think
very sensitive
regardless,
about,
we should look into that. I agree with you. As a separate item, we should look into rerouting the bus maybe. If the ridership is not up there, if there's no opposition from MTA. MTA might come back and tell us that's a good idea because the ridership has decreased and we'd rather stay on Glen Oaks. So,
the
but,
street is wider.
yeah, so let's keep that as a separate item and let's move forward with this.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so,
So we need
Do we have to move the motion?
yes,
Okay, I'll move the motion.
Second.
roll.
Commissioner Salayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
And Chairperson Zahakian?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, immediately we'll talk with the MTA.
Yeah.
And as soon as we know, just for the information of the residents, once we have an answer, if they have no objection, within about a 3-4 weeks period, we'll go to City Council, because that's what it takes time to go to Council. If there's an issue, we'll try to bring it back to your next
To the next
Commission meeting
meeting.
in October.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for coming. Next item, please.
Item 5B, Director of Public Works regarding report regarding installation of speed humps on Patterson Avenue between Concord Street and Kenilworth Avenue. 5B1, motion to recommend that the City Council approve the installation of 3 speed humps on Patterson Avenue between Concord Street and Kenilworth Avenue.
Thank you, and I do have 4 cards, 4 speakers for this item. And the first speaker I'm going to take is Mr. Dan Sternow.
Evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dan Sternow. I'm at 616 Patterson Avenue. I've lived on Patterson since 1983. Traffic's been worse the last couple of years. August of '07, I called the city to find out what can we do about the traffic, and they sent back a survey that went around the neighbors and got a very positive response. I got 32 out of 38 people signing it. The missing 6, 3 of them said no. The other 3 were unavailable to sign it. So traffic there is pretty heavy. We have the park. There's a lot of residents with children. Personally, I don't have any children in my home, but they're with all the kids in the park, everything, all the activities, soccer, the families there. This seems to be an excessive amount of speed. Kids, not just kids that are driving fast, but they seem to have no regard for the people double parking on the street. They have no regard for kids playing next to the curb at the park, because the park comes right up, all the playground is right next to Patterson. So I just came to say that we got a really good response from the neighborhood. Everybody seemed to be in very positive response for putting in the speed bumps. I just came to support that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And I didn't ask staff to give us a presentation on this because it's, as far as the condition, it's a slam dunk, and I don't want to steal their time. It meets basically every criteria. The study finds that all warrants are met for the installation. Next speaker is Mr. Richard Soto.
Thank you for your time. I am a resident on Patterson. In fact, I live at 708, which is where one of the speed humps will probably be in front of and installed. And I just wanted to come and show my support for the idea of it and reiterate one of the other residents on the block has just stated, is that there is a park, there is a young factor congregating there, and they tend to ignore the speed limit, and in their zealousness to leave the park, they zip, exceeding the speed limit in the 50 yards that they've got to the stop sign. So I would highly recommend it, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you, sir.
Next speaker, Mr. William Golden.
No babysitter. Thank you for having us. My name is William Golden. I live at 660 Patterson, which gives me a unique alternative because I live right at that intersection of Glendale and Patterson. I am glad that several of my neighbors have pointed out the park, because I think it's an important factor that's missing from that map, especially where the children's area is literally 15 feet maybe from the street, and people are regularly driving 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Not something we want to bring up here, but something else this council might want to address later. Glendale Avenue has no stop sign. Kenilworth does, Glendale does not. So people go behind the park to do whatever activities they're doing, come back down Glendale, and then fly without stopping onto Patterson, both left and right. So I am glad to see that there are speed bumps recommended on both sides of Glendale. My worry, of course, is that they're going to fly right past Glendale with no stop sign and then continue down Chester, but that's another issue. The speed bumps are important just simply because the cars are often driving very quickly by young drivers, completely not acknowledging the fact that there are children playing, there are dogs present in the park, there are often children's parties that go on in the park, all of which are very often in danger. I know I and my wife have both almost been hit several times pulling out of our driveway by cars coming from Graydale and coming down Patterson. That's a very, very dangerous area, and it seems logical with a park right there. Thank you.
Thank you. And last speaker on this item, Mr. Hill, Jim Hill.
Thank you. I reside at 667 Patterson, which is on the corner of Graydale and Patterson. Lived there for 11 years. My wife, 2 kids, 11 and 12, which have grown up there for the past 11 years. If you talk to the police department, I have been a advocate of using the police department for the past 11 years to numerous times call the police and stop activities in the park. The speeding has gotten worse and worse since we've moved in there. The part of the issue is people get on the freeway at Pacific. If Pacific is backed up, they go down Burchett, come down Patterson like blazes, and to get on at San Fernando. It doesn't matter the hour of the day. It's from 5 o'clock in the morning till 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's around the clock. If I would have been, if I'd have known that Dan, we know each other, he lives down at the other end of the park, I would also propose to put speed bumps on Graydale, which is, my house faces Patterson, but my driveway is actually on the Graydale side. And people come in, what you don't see is where Graydale goes straight, it actually curves back to that building, from there to that building, and there's a parking lot back there for the tennis center. People go back there, and if you talk to the police, they go back there, and there's illegal activities that go back there. The park is supposed to be closed at 10. Numerous times, and I've gone out to the park and talked to people just because they're disturbing my kids trying to sleep. But the cars, at 10 o'clock when the tennis center closes, those people they just zoom around the corner, and the fact that there's no, on my corner, that there is no stop sign. I've addressed that with the police, and the police have said that's not an issue that they can work with. I've addressed the police numerous years ago about the fact of setting up a radar and tracking these. They said the police department said they couldn't do that because of the fact that the street hadn't been surveyed. I don't know what that means as far as the police department, but I guess they have to come out and take measurements or whatever before they can do a radar.
It's a speed survey. It's not a geometric survey.
Well, according to the police, that's what they said. They said it's not. They can't come out and set up a radar gun on the thing.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not uncommon to see 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. It's not uncommon for motorcycles, and they come to the park. The issue with the park, there's no walkway around the park, in the park itself. So people walk in the street. There's a lot of the elderly, and a lot of it is the Armenian community that come to the park, spend time in the park, and walk, and not just Armenian, but other nationalities. They walk, but on Patterson at the park, there's no walkway. They walk on the outside of the cars. So you have a parked car, you have people walking, and people, they fly up and down that road. People have, as in the other gentleman's video, people have passed. They passed me when I stopped to turn to go into Graydale. They go around because I'm stopped. I'm waiting for somebody to come through the cross. There's not a crosswalk there, but across the street. It's kind of a blind corner. It's all residential on the south side, but the big open spot there is the park. And the park runs right up to the curb. There's no walkway. There's no sidewalk in the park. So and like I said, a lot of people, if you go out there, and I used to do it, and I have to get started again, but they walk the park. And the fact that kids use the park, and a ball goes out, and I've gone out myself and stopped cars by standing in the middle of the road on Graydale to tell people to stop and slow down and think about what they're doing. Because somebody parks a car, open the car door, they walk out, and it is an issue. And it's been an issue for the 11 years that we've lived there. And if it would be any way possible to be able to add one, or if we'd have to start this process over, to add one in the Graydale side, on Graydale in there, because that is a problem also. They come in that parking lot and they zip around, and like we said, there's no stop sign on Graydale to Patterson. And they come, and if cars are parked there, they come way out, and it's just an accident waiting to happen and somebody to be killed. And like the previous issue, how long, what is it going to take? And I've talked to the police. I've had the police to the house. I've talked to them on the stop them, and of what it's going to take. Does somebody have to get injured or killed, or a car come up to they come down Patterson Avenue, want to turn in? That I'm still waiting for when a car ends up in my yard because of trying to take that turn too quick. There's a lot of.
I'll give you 30 more seconds.
Okay. There's a mix between rental properties and single families, but as Dan took the time and effort to start this, and the majority of the people, and I've been there for 11 years, I know some of the people more down towards the higher numbers from my block towards Concord, but everybody is in support of this. And we did go through the fact of there was no street lights in there. I don't know if you guys were the department that did street lights, but we ended up putting we had street lights put in because that was an issue. Because where in front of the 700 side, it was dark, and you combine the darkness with speeding traffic and an accident waiting to happen.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yes,
For the speaker?
no,
Okay.
sorry.
To staff?
Yes, please. Is there any way possible we can put a stop sign on why there's no stop sign on Graydale?
That would not be a problem. It's not uncommon on lower volume streets when there are T intersections where a formal stop sign has not been installed. There's the implication there as you're driving south, in this case, that you're yielding to the left or the right. If there were cross movement, that might be a different issue, but that's not a problem. We have no issue with putting a stop sign in at that point.
Okay, how soon?
How late's Home Depot open, right?
Okay, I think we're ready. Can we put the slide that shows the study for the viewers from home? Let's leave it at this slide, and then I think we're ready to move on this item.
I move 5B1 with the minor correction on page 2, I think it's 2004, for the traffic calming program. Okay.
Second.
Your roll?
Commissioner Salayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And the stop sign issue, since Commissioner Sulaya made a request, if we can fit it into the schedule. I did see, although I didn't, no, there's a slight curve where it's not a visibility problem, but we can, if you're speeding too high, it could become a visibility problem going in the westbound directions. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5C, Director of Public Works regarding reports regarding installation of speed humps on Harvard Street between Kenilworth Avenue and Pacific Avenue. 5C1, motion to recommend that the City Council approve the installation of 3 humps on Harvard Street between Kenilworth Avenue and Pacific Avenue.
Thank you. And if you can, again, just put the warrant slide, the study slide up. And colleagues, if you looked at the package again, this met all the warrants. And if you have any questions to staff or any comments, otherwise we can move forward with this item.
Any speakers?
We don't have any speakers on this item.
I move 5.1C.
If you can fill out a card, we'll hear you. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and speak, and then just give us the card afterwards.
Thank you. I live at the corner of Pacific and Harvard. I've been living there for 8 years.
Your name, please.
My name is Maurice Science. And thank you. There's constant speeding on that street on Harvard all the time. Just like some of the people that have spoken here before, I have seen this. I have even walked on the street to see how fast all the cars come. There's no public transportation on that street. It's very narrow, but people still speed all the time. Just like in some of those people mentioned, speeds over 30, 40, even 50 miles an hour are, very common. There's no public transportation, so I don't know what the requirements are, but for what I can see, it meets all the criteria, correct?
Yes.
So if you guys recommend the installation of the speed bumps, I will be really appreciated. All of my neighbors will be really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have a first on this motion?
I've introduced 5C1, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Salayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian?
Yes. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 6, Commission and staff comments or updates.
Commissioner Salayan.
I have some bunch of questions quickly. First one is the photo enforcement on Mountain and Verdugo. Have we had any accident ever since it was installed?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Salayan, we're doing police department is doing an analysis of the citations that have been issued at that intersection and the other intersection where we have photo enforcement. We will bring a report back to the commission. They're tabulating the citations, and then we'll bring a report back to the commission that shows what the citation records are, and then whether or not it will be probably very early to see if there's been an impact in the accidents, because you need to have 1 or 2 years at least of accident data to see whether there's been a reduction in certain types of accidents as a result of photo radar enforcement.
Okay. And regarding the same issue, about maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, around 1:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning, I was at that location, and the light came on green. I was stopped. The light came green. I took off, and then on the middle of the intersection, the light turned yellow quickly, very quickly. So, and there was no one behind me. So I was thinking if there was some folks behind me, they would have got a ticket, the third or the fourth car. It was very quickly changed. It's not the same timing during the day. So the delta, when the light turned from green to yellow or from yellow to red, was very quick. So I just wanted to say that the information, and this is early in the morning, like around 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning.
The signal is designed to service Verdugo Road, so if it's only one car, that if you're on Mountain, the minute you leave Mountain, then it will go to a yellow time and then go to back to Verdugo Road. In case if somebody is behind you and they enter the intersection on the red, obviously then they'll, the radar photo light will take a picture, and then it will be looked at to see whether or not they enter the intersection on the red. But I'll check the timing in case there's an issue. Right.
Specifically the timing.
Is the concern the interval of the yellow interval, or the green changing phases basically to the other direction?
Both, the green, yellow, and red, was very quickly. From green to yellow was maybe no more than 2 seconds, and then when I passed, I looked for my rear view mirror, it was already red.
Because the yellow interior wouldn't change.
Yeah. Usually, in all cases, we have a minimum green time. So technically, that's about 5 seconds. So on a side street, major street, minor street, in case of Verdugo being major, Mountain being minor, from Mountain to Verdugo, it has a 5-second minimum green time. So as soon as you leave the sensors at the stop bar, and there's no other cars that have been detected, it will go to a yellow time of 3 to 4 seconds, and then it will go to red.
Okay, then there's a sensor that would tell if there's another car a second or
Right.
Oh, I
If
see.
there's-
Okay.
Yeah, if there's several cars waiting,
I didn't know about the sensor.
If
after
there's no demand,
Yeah.
basically it's going to switch
Oh,
back to the
I see.
main line,
Okay.
which is...
But again, that was still, even though it's...
we'll check it out, but every vehicle that is there,
130?
From 130 and 110.
I have a related question, actually. When in traffic court one time, the judge actually was able to pull up the pictures from the traffic cameras. Is our system set up for that
yeah,
as well?
you'll
Okay.
see a video of, at the moment, it's at different stages where
Great.
you're crossing on the red, it shows where, at what point you enter the intersection, and it does show the indication at the same time.
Excellent.
So you'll be able to see.
I think what needs to be done is a public education campaign to let drivers know that if you do the California turn, the right roll, coming
Yes.
southbound downhill and going towards the college, if you don't stop, you'll get a ticket. Because I stood there and I counted 5 vehicles, one after the other, getting their pictures taken. They just come down, they don't stop to make the right turn, and that's a ticket right there. On this issue, I know you have other questions. It's only for east and westbound traffic, the photo
That's the
enforcement.
approaches we have, yes.
The approaches we have right now. Okay, and I was curious why we chose east and west and not north-south?
We did prior to installation of the cameras, we had the vendor actually did a study, they videotaped the intersection to see where the violations are.
Okay.
And that's the area we had the most violations.
The other question is, I know a lot of folks have been asking me about bike lane in Glendale. So I don't know if you received some calls about that. And I don't know what street we can have bike lanes. I have no clue, but they've been asking to have bike lanes if that's possible to study.
We have city has a bicycle master plan, which we have designated what streets can have bike lanes of different types, type 1, type 2, type 3. Unfortunately, given the width of our streets, we don't have the luxury of striping bike lanes, but we are going to be striping bike lanes on Glen Oaks. Once we do the completed resurfacing, we have basically from from Pacific to the west, western city limits, we will be installing bike lanes there. The rest of our street system does not accommodate, we just don't have the width to install bike lanes.
Okay.
You need 5 foot outside of parking.
Really? Okay. Okay. Just question, raising that issue. The other thing is, I know I've raised this issue a couple times. When are we going to synchronize the traffic light? And I know it's Caltrans on one side of the light regarding the intersection of Glendale Avenue and 134. Because it's getting worse and worse during business hours, during when people come home or when people go to work, going to work.
The westbound on-ramp you're talking about?
Yes. To make sometimes they block the whole street and you get, it's really...
You're talking about the meter ramp down on the on-ramp?
When you get off, not the meter ramp.
The off-ramp?
The off-ramp. When you go on off-ramp on Glendale Avenue and you hit from 134 to Glendale Avenue, just to make a left turn or the right turn is jammed on Glendale Avenue. You can't even make a left turn. You have to hit 2 traffic lights just to make a left turn. And it's been going on for a while.
We have plans to upgrade that intersection of Monterey and Glendale Avenue, and also the next intersection. Once we upgrade it, we have some changes in the striping. We'll work with Caltrans. Like all our freeway off-ramps, we are at capacity. So we could synchronize them, but we still have to, the traffic does not get onto the freeway because of the ramp metering, so it's going to back up. So even though you may have green indications in a row, you're still, because of the freeway ramps, you will have a bottleneck that you have to get through. We are running almost at capacity at the freeway ramp intersection. So it would be very difficult given the volume of traffic during peak hours, but we will be doing a major upgrade at those intersections, so within a year.
Within a year? Yeah, I was going to say, okay. Do we know which routes? I know when the American Air brand came on board, we synchronized, I believe, Brand and Central. Did we do that?
Yes, all those arterials are synchronized.
So they're all synchronized, okay. And one more question, and I'll be done. When are we is this part of the plan, by the way, regarding the meters from Colorado all the way to the freeway? We're talking about putting all the meters when you're allowed to park and when you're not allowed to park. Each block has different time limit and time allowed. I believe from Colorado to Broadway is like you can park from 4 to 6 p.m. and then you go above, it's I think 5 to 7 p.m. So if we can not synchronize, if we can do the same across the board so the traffic can flow.
I'm sorry, this is the parking restrictions on Colorado.
No, on Glendale Avenue, sorry.
On Glendale Avenue, parking restrictions.
From Colorado all the way to the freeway.
I know we have a variety, when I say variety, of different parking restrictions because of the type of businesses that are there. So we will look at that, but north of Broadway, we have a plan, and Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, for adding a third northbound lane north of Broadway all the way to the 134 freeway by removing parking on the east side of Glendale Avenue during peak hour, PM peak hour.
Okay. All the way to the freeway?
All the way to the freeway.
Okay, that will help greatly, yes.
And I think that would take care of the restriction issue.
Right.
And the last thing is not to ask a question. I'd like to thank the Glendale PD because for the last 2 to 3 weeks I noticed late hours on Verdugo and on La Cañada, weekends included, giving traffic tickets for people who speed. So I would like to thank the Glendale PD very much. To me, it had a great improvement. If we can pass on that message, I believe it's Mr. Carl, I can't pronounce his last name. Ovalitis. No, it wasn't 1 in the morning. It was until, I think they gave ticket until 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. I was coming from Montrose, and one on Verdugo and one on La Cañada.
Did you get one?
I mentioned his name in vain. They didn't give me a ticket.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments to staff? Okay, I think, Ruby, you covered everything.
I did?
Yeah, you stole a couple of my questions. You did a good job, yeah.
I'm covering for the last
so with
meeting.
that, staff, do you have any updates?
Mr. Chairman, I want to inform the Commission that there's a good possibility we may need to have a special meeting in the month of September. We are working on a staff report for establishing parking meter rates on Brand Boulevard. Council approved installation of pay stations on Brand Boulevard or multi-space meters. But we will be bringing that item to the Commission for your recommendation to the City Council. This is establishing parking meter rates on Brand, establishing parking meter rates for the off-street parking lots and the city-owned parking structures. Also establishing time restrictions from what time of the day to what time of the day those meters or the lots should be enforced. So we will have a recommendation to you that's based on the recently approved mobility plan, and we need to have that done so that as soon as we receive the pay stations, we can make up the signs that says what hours those meters will be in operations and what the rates are going to be. So that would be, we will be sending you an email or a fax to give you a couple of dates. So it's based on your availability, then we'll set up the meeting.
Are we looking at first week of September?
I would imagine it would be more of a second or the third week of September, because then after the commission recommendation, you need to take it to city council immediately. So, but having to wait till the last meeting of September, that it will impact our schedule.
Okay. And are we planning to meet regularly on the fourth Monday also? This would be an
Yeah,
additional
that would-
special meeting, or
right.
will it replace it?
I will see what items we have. We may have a couple of preferential parking items that I could still try to get that on the September meeting, the regular meeting, but this one just be because there will be a lot of information for you. We want to just have a special meeting for that.
Okay.
Just want to make a note, there's a Memorial Weekend, I believe.
The
Right.
first Monday is Memorial.
I will not
Yeah.
be here the whole week.
Yeah, there won't be
Okay.
that week. It was probably, as I said, second or the third Monday of September.
Right after you come back from vacation, we'll spoil it for you.
Okay, second week, so,
I would probably say
We'll be
more of
safe
the
the third
15th
week.
or the 22nd. 22nd is our regular meeting.
so 1 week before that.
Potentially the 15th
That's
of
fine.
September.
Okay.
Or any other day of the week, depending on if the council chamber is available. We'll give you some dates to get a quorum for the commission, preferably have all the commissioners here. So it doesn't have to be on a Monday. It could be, obviously can't be on a Tuesday, but any other day, we'll check with your schedule.
Okay. Thank you. Any other updates? Okay, with that, next item, please.
Item 7, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn.